everyone, welcome to Deeksha Vedantu. I am Aditi, your physics teacher, and I'm back with yet another quick summary of the chapter Human Eye. Now, of course, these are gorgeous little human eyes that enables us to see this pretty world around us. Those sunset, the skies, the beaches, right? Someone else's eyes maybe. We are going to see everything today. What is inside our eye that lets us see this outside world. Right, we will see what are the parts of human eye, how the image is formed, what are the defects. That's why I have this specs, right? We'll see everything. So let's start. Now, there is a part of human eye which gives our eyes these amazing blue, brown, blackish colors, right? Let me know in the comment section what is that part. Okay, let's start with our first thing, that is human eye. Now, diagram is very important, but you need to practice this diagram very carefully, right? And you have to label it. So let's see what are all the parts that we have in our eye, right? And what are their functions. So the very first is cornea. The very first part is cornea. This cornea, the first part, when light enters your eye, or if you open your eye and touch it with your finger, the first layer that you touch, that is cornea. What its function, ma'am? Its function is mostly to refract the light that is entering into our eye. Most part of the refraction that is happening in our eye is not due to the lens, but it is due to the cornea. Lens also does the refraction, but major part of the refraction is done by cornea. Okay, moving on to next is iris and pupil. Now, do you know a camera? You know it has a shutter, right? Pupil is the shutter of our eye. What it does is, when the brightness of light is too much, it decreases the shutter, right? And so that not the intensity of light that is entering our eye, it may be harming us, or you can feel this little slight pain around your eyes when you go into a sunlight, right? Because lots of light is entering into our eye. So this shutter, this pupil decreases the shutter and manages the intensity of light that is entering into our eye, right? The iris, on the other hand, is the one that controls the pupil. It helps pupil to shut its doors. It helps pupil to open its door when we go into a movie theater, let's say. So it is dark around, right? So for that, our pupil needs to be big so that lots of light can enter it, whatever the light is there, right? So iris controls the pupil, and pupil is the shutter of our human eye. So we have studied what? Pupil and iris, and I have asked you a question that what part of the eye is responsible to give the color, of the eye. That is, my friend, is iris. Correct? That is iris. Moving on to the next, we have crystalline lens. I'll come to aqueous humor, just give me a minute. Crystalline lens. We know the lens we have in our human eye is what? It is a convex lens. Understood? It is a convex lens. What it does, it converges the light rays onto a screen. What it does, it refracts and converges the light rays onto the screen, which enables us to see the light. I'll come to it. So convex lens understood, and it is crystalline in nature. Now the next thing is aqueous humor. What? Aqueous humor. What is aqueous humor? It is a fluid between the first part, that was cornea, fluid between cornea and my crystalline lens. It is a fluid between cornea and lens, and basically what it does is helps to maintain the pressure of the eye, the pressure between cornea and lens, and it also helps to provide oxygen from the air to the lens, right? Correct? Okay, moving on, we have now this whole part is done. Oh, one thing is left, that is ciliary muscles. What are ciliary muscles? Ciliary muscles, ma'am, we know one very important property of our lens that we'll study in just a minute, that my lens can change its shape, right? So these ciliary muscles are the muscles that helps the lens to change its shape. It maintain its shape whether it's thick or thin. These muscles are the ones that are holding our lens. This is my lens, okay? This stylus is my lens and my hands are ciliary muscles. So these muscles are the ones that are holding our lenses into its shape. Understood? Very good. Moving on, we have this whole part filled with vitreous humor. What is this known as? Vitreous humor. Vitreous humor basically helps us to maintain the shape of our eye into a full ball, into a ball kind of structure. If vitreous humor is not there, the ball might squish or something, right? So vitreous humor is used to maintain the shape of our eyeball. Understood everything? Now the main part comes, that is our retina. We are done with vitreous humor. Now the part is retina. Now retina, now we know we have a lens, but that lens makes the image on a screen. That screen is called retina. That screen is called retina. Now the screen has two types of cells, that are rods and cones, which are light sensitive cells. Which are, see, this retina has rods and cones. These are millions of small cells present on our retina. These take the information from the rays that are converging. That's why these are light sensitive. Whenever light falls on these cells, they get active, and what that does is, now they pass the information to this, what, our optic nerve. As the information reaches the optic nerve, what it does is, it converts the light signals into electrical signals. It converts light signals into electrical signals and pass it to our brain, where brain tells us, yes, these are my cute kids, right? This is my Aditi ma'am, right? Okay, we are done with all the parts of human eye and their function. This diagram is important. Do practice them. But more than that, this function of all these parts, what are they used for, is very, very important. Okay, moving on, we have, the most important, one of the most important topics of this chapter is power of accommodation. What we know, that these are the ciliary muscles, this is then my lens, and these are again the ciliary muscles, right? Now these are ciliary muscles, this is my lens. Now to see distant objects or to see nearby objects, our lens needs to change its shape. So the ability of my eye lens to change its shape, it can be thin, it can be very thick. The ability of the eye lens to change its shape according to the given situation, according to the distance of object from the eye, is called power of accommodation of eye. Right? Now exactly what happens, this is very important. MCQ questions can be asked from this, right? Okay, kids, listen up. When the muscles relax, when these muscles relax, that means they are not holding the lens tightly, they are relaxed. As the muscles relax, lens gets thinner. Lens gets thinner. We have thin lens, and because we have thin lens, of course the focal length increases. I know the focal length of this lens is more than this lens, right? So as the muscles relax, lens becomes thin and focal length increases. Since focal length increases, we can see distant objects clearly. Understood? Then if muscles contract, if they are holding the lens very tightly, that means the lens is now contracted. Understood? The lens is now not relaxed, the muscles are not relaxed, muscles are contracted, and the lens becomes thick. It becomes thick. As the lens becomes thick, their its focal length decreases. Understood? Muscles contract, lens becomes thick, and focal length decreases. As the focal length decreases, the object distance also decreases, right? So how you can remember, as focal length of the lens increases, we can see distant objects. That means the object distance also increases. Understood? As focal length decreases, the distance, we can see nearby objects very clearly. And when the focal length increases, when my muscles relax, and when focal length decreases, when my muscles contract. Easy, very easy. Okay, moving on to the next part, we are on to defects. These defects are very important topic. There are two defects, myopia, hypermetropia. We'll revise them very quickly. Okay, myopia is nearsightedness. That means you can see nearby objects very clearly but cannot see distant objects clearly. Now here, this should be the ideal case that the image is forming on the retina, right? But in case of myopia, the image forms in front of the retina. In front of the retina. The image is formed in front of the retina, something like this. Understood? Why this happens? Because the curvature of eyeball, the curvature of lens decreases, the curvature of focal length decreases, the curvature of eye lens increases. Curvature increases but focal length decreases. Excessive curvature, that means curvature is more, it becomes thick, right? And focal length decreases. Elongation of the eyeball became elongated, right? It was this small, it becomes elongated, right? And to correct it, we use concave lens. Understood? Then hypermetropia is far-sightedness. It is far-sightedness. That means you can see far objects clearly but not the near ones. Can see far objects clearly but cannot see nearby objects. So this is the ideal case, right? But in this case, in myopia, the image is forming in front of the retina. In here, the image is forming behind the retina. Okay, clearly see, it is forming behind the retina. And why this happens? Because the focal length of my lens increased. That's why it is not focusing on the retina. Its focal length increased, or the eyeball focal length increases, or the eyeball has become too small. First it was this big, the eyeball became shorter, right? And to correct hypermetropia, we use convex lens. Understood? Okay, moving on, the one defect we have left is presbyopia. Now if someone cannot see nearby objects or faraway objects clearly, they have a defect known as presbyopia. Why it happens? Generally it is seen in old age, where we can say that it happens because of the weakening of the ciliary muscles. Ciliary muscles were the ones that was holding my eye lens in place. So it is happening because of gradual weakening of ciliary muscles. As in old age we know all the muscles get weakened, so ciliary muscles also gets weakened, and that's why gradual weakening of ciliary muscles and diminishing flexibility of the eye lens, that is already controlled by ciliary muscles, but you can write that it is because the diminishing flexibility of the eye lens. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, to correct this, to correct myopia, we used concave lens. To correct hypermetropia, we use convex lens. To correct presbyopia, we use bifocal lens. What are bifocal lens, ma'am? These are the lens in which both concave and convex lenses are present. The lower part is for hypermetropia, is to read books, right? When we read books, we look down. So the lower part is used to correct hypermetropia. That means it is convex lens. And the upper part is used to see distant objects. That is, it is concave part of the lens. Understood? And again, we have a very crazy fun fact is that our eyes lives longer than the person. Correct? So if someone dies, then their eyes are living longer, they can easily donate their eyes so that some other person can get the joy of seeing the world, right? Okay, moving on, we have just little bit itty bitty topics left. First is refraction through light. Itty bitty but very important. Okay, so what happens when light comes? We draw a normal, and since it is rarer, it is denser, again rarer, because this is glass prism, right? This is glass and this is air, so it is definitely, this is my normal, it is bending towards the normal. It should go like this, but is bending towards the normal. And again we draw a normal something here, and now it is going from denser to rarer. denser to rarer, right? So it will bend away from the normal. So this is my incident ray, this is my emergent ray, this is my refracted ray. This is my incident angle, this is refracted angle, and this is emergent angle. Understood? Clear? Very clear? And this, if you extend the incident ray and you extend the emergent ray backwards, the angle between incident and emergent ray is called angle of deviation. What it is called? Angle of deviation. And this angle, the angle between two refracting faces of the prism, is called angle of prism. Angle I, angle of incidence, angle A, angle of prism, angle R, refraction, angle E is the angle of emergence, and D is the angle of deviation. Understood? Moving on, we have dispersion of white light. So, whenever white light is entering into my prism, it is getting dispersed into 7 constituent colors that are Vibgyor. It is based on the property of refractive index and different wavelengths of all the colors in the white light. Understood? And this is a very cool phenomena. What happens? We send white light into a prism, it gets dispersed into its 7 colors. If we send those 7 colors again into a prism, but now the prism is inverted. The prism is inverted, so it goes into the prism and it combines into a single light again, that is white light. Understood? Okay, moving on, we just have 2 things left. The first is formation of rainbow. Ma'am, very easy. Light goes inside the water droplet. Since it has different refractive index, it gets dispersed as well as refracted. It gets refracted and dispersed into 7 colors. Then inside it gets totally internally reflected. It gets, the phenomena is called total internal reflection. Understood? And again it comes out, the refracted ray comes out and in the form of Vibgyor, which we see on rainbows. Understood? So first refraction happened, then dispersion, then reflection, that is total internal reflection, then refraction again while the ray is coming out of the water droplet. Understood? Then we have scattering. Scattering, we have lots of dust particles, water droplets, dust particles, gas inside our environment, in our air, right? So when light distracts, when light hits those particles, strikes those tiny particles, it gets deviated from its straight path. The light is going straight, this is a gas particle, it strikes it and it gets deviates from its straight path. That is called scattering of light. That is it. Okay. Tyndall effect. When a beam of light strikes such fine particles, the path of beam becomes visible. Whenever I am sitting in a dark room, the small light entering into the room, we have crammed it by now. But it is very important, all the effects are very important. So whenever that light hit fine particles, their path of those particles becomes visible, and that is what is called Tyndall effect. Understood? And we are done with our chapter. These are some of the important questions that you need to study. I'll also be coming live and we'll doing all these questions, but these questions are of course human eye. Why do stars twinkle but planets do not? What is the color? Why is the color of the sky blue? Why the danger signals are red in color? If you know any of the answers, comment down in the comment section. I'll definitely see those. Okay, we are done with the chapter. A very quick summary of the chapter human eye. I hope you understood it. If you have any doubt, feel free to contact us, and we'll see you in the next chapter. And I'm coming live, make sure to join those. Till then, tata, bye bye.